Welcome everybody to Papa Spice's Hot Takes with Hans and Harry. I am Papa Spice. Harry, how are you doing tonight?
Papa, I'm doing pretty good. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. We got the new Bond movie coming out, which I'm a huge fan of. I did, for the listeners, get Chris a box set of the previous movies, so we'll hear from him in a minute if he's done his deep dive to get ready for that movie. But yeah, just really looking forward to some Harry time. It's been a stressful last couple weeks, but some fun ones. And me and Chris, we went down to Disney together. Just me and him. We actually went with our wives and family. So long answer. I'm doing good.
Good. Hans, how about you? How was your time in Disney?
It was good. There was a lot of people. Which it was the 50th anniversary, so we went down. There was like 7 of us, so it was fun. It was a short, like Thursday to Sunday vacation, but we actually got a lot done. Harry and I did a couple hours in Pandora, so that was nice.
Yeah,
and
drop Avatar 2, Jimmy. Come on, Jimmy C.
The one thing I've never done before is eat an entire fish. So that was something that I wasn't expect I was going to be doing on Thursday. But
man,
yeah.
Do you like seafood?
I love seafood.
Here we go.
Okay. I love seafood.
Greg, this was the same conversation we had at the restaurant. The waiter told me and Chris at the table, as along with our buddy Ray, it was a whole fish. Neither one of those two heard that. And then I told Chris, what a bold choice to get the whole, I think it was like a sea bass. I was like, what a bold choice by you. Look at snapper. You living. And I was a snapper. I'm sorry. And the whole fish came out. Eye, head, bones and all.
Wow.
And it was pretty hysterical to watch Chris's face slowly realize I ordered a whole fish. And only downside of Disney, it was 90 degrees every day. So yeah, it was pretty off-putting for October. So sadly.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I wasn't going to say anything else. Harry covered the heat.
I didn't get to go to Disney with you guys, obviously, but
sorry, loser.
Yeah, it's all right. But I did get to do something definitely not as fun, which is I went to go see Venom, Let There Be Carnage. I didn't want to see it initially.
You saw it? You went and saw it?
Ooh. I did. Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And I told you guys I didn't want to see it initially. And the more I heard about this post-credit scene, non-spoiler, but people were just like, it's going to blow your mind and like all this stuff. So I'm like,
I can smell it already.
All right, let me go see it. I basically went to go see this movie for the post-credit scene. And I was just going to go by myself. But then when I told Janet, hey, do you mind if I pop out to go see this? She's like, no, I want to go too. So we made a day of it. I gave it 2 out of 5 stars on my Letterboxd. Was not a fan of it. If you like the first one, you'll probably like this one. It was just more of what was in the first one. So I didn't like it. But I will say that post-credit scene is worth the wait. It's definitely mind-blowing. So
interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So there it is. If you want to sit through an hour and a half of gunk to get to, the nougaty filling, then by all means.
Greg.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit surprised as a lover of the theater and as a former worker of the theater, you couldn't just figure out how to time it with like the end credits and be like, oh, I'm going to jump into this movie really quick and then just go get a refund for a future show. Like,
well, I probably could have, but like I said, Janet wanted to see it too. So I was all right. Yeah.
If it was a solo mission, maybe you would have got creative.
Oh yeah, for sure. I definitely would have. I would have waited till like this weekend and saw like Lamb and then, popped in for Venom or something. Not that we're advocating that. Meanwhile, our friend Val, listener, super fan and listener of the show.
We love
Val Brown, who by the way helped hook up the Venomage.
Nice.
So she was a big help there. Thank you so much, Val, for being a listener and for helping us out.
Love you, Val.
Yes,
can I jump in with that? I could have saved you an hour and a half because the end credit scene is online and I watched it because I was not going to watch Venom 2.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but I mean it's probably better in the theater, but I know exactly. Yeah. So
without spoiling, what are your thoughts on it?
Really cool. I think it's
Yeah.
I think it's actually not what I expected. So I'm glad in that aspect. And you
Mhm.
know, without going into spoilers for it, I it's kind of cool to see how it's going to go move forward.
Right.
So we will see.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you to Val and Venom. You can skip it. Just pop in for the end credit scene, get your money back. All right, but Venom is an alien, so here's that neat neat
What a
segue.
transition by you.
I know.
Look at you.
So
Stretching.
we're going to a galaxy far, far away.
Hey.
And a long time ago. And we're actually ranking the live action theatrical Star Wars movies today. So we're gonna dive into that in just a sec. We actually each did our own list of the 11 live action Star Wars movies, and we ranked them ourselves. Harry was kind enough to collate those and put the average, and we got a total rankings for us. So we're gonna work our way back from 11 all the way down to 1. So without any further ado, let's dive in. And the first one that we had, which is the last on the list, is
it was a tie. It was a tie for last, to be fair.
Yes, tie for last. Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones. I actually had this higher on my list because I really enjoyed it. I guess I could say I enjoyed it. I had it ranked 7th, not all the way down at the bottom. But clearly there's some I guess contrarians here, some different opinions. I thought it was a pretty good movie. Good transition in between episodes 1 and 3. It's kind of right on the precipice of the Clone Wars. We don't actually get to see the Clone Wars in the movie, so that was a little disappointing. But I enjoyed the action, especially all the stuff on Geonosis at the end. You had the duel with Count Dooku. You had all the Jedis popping in to save, oh God, why am I blanking out on these names? Amidala and Obi-Wan and Anakin. Yeah.
The 3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, the stuff with the Separatists and maybe some of the stuff on Camino isn't the strongest, although that duel between Django and Obi-Wan was pretty cool in the rain, but the stuff with the actual Kaminoans, maybe not the most interesting. But I don't know. I feel like this deserves to be higher. What did you guys think about Attack of the Clones?
I don't like it. As a Star Wars fan, like I just flat out don't like it. Like I will talk Star Wars like all day, every day. I'd like go into like in Disney, Galaxy's Edge is one of my favorite places to go. But just I don't find like maybe 1 or 2 redeeming factors of this movie, and none of them, like I don't even say you mentioned like the Dooku fight at the end. Like I think that's like I think out of lightsaber fights in all of Star Wars, it's probably the worst. And a lot of it, like, I don't know if it's like necessarily like I like Christopher Lee, and I think his acting in the movie's good, but I think like the choreography in that is really like weird. Like I think there's a lot of weird lighting and like kind of weird edits where it kind of throws me off. Like it's all right, but you get to see like Yoda for the first time, not like just limp around. Like he actually like does all that flying stuff. So that was pretty cool. I honestly, like, other than Camino, I can't. Like the movie really drives me crazy, and the relationship between Hayden and Natalie Portman. I said this the last episode when I was talking about Natalie Portman. Like the script is just so awful, and their deliveries. Like I don't know if it's whether or not like I feel like good directors really get a lot, like really push for their performances. And this seems like in this, like George Lucas was like they did like that whole scene when they're in the field, and that the weird and it's like a crazy meme now. And I think that is like Lucas probably took one shot like at it. He's like, that's good, we're gonna move on to the next thing. Like it didn't, I felt like there was like no like heart to it felt like a Star Wars movie, but it just like felt like it outside of like this is the first time we get to see Hayden Christensen. And I think it's just like you could tell he was like early on in acting where just like he didn't really, I don't feel like he just wasn't strong enough for this movie. And I'm not blaming him. It could have been the script and Lucas and a lot of other things, but I feel like there's more issues with this movie. Like every time I watch it, I find something else. And I don't, if I had to rank this out of 10, I'd probably give it like a 3, which is like for a Star Wars movie for me I consider it a travesty, but it just, I don't think it's a good movie. So, Harry, what do you think? I know you had it a little higher than me.
Yeah, actually, so I had it as number 10 for me. And
a little bit higher.
So I think during this episode we should probably kind of discuss when we finish, one of the sets of trilogies and kind of just talk about them as a whole. So yeah, not much higher than you, Chris. So this came out in 2002. I think part of this is also like sometimes your feelings on it is like, when does this movie come out? And like, where was I and how was I shown these movies? And, I think we all probably have a similar set where like when we were young, even though the first trilogy came out in the 70s and late 70s, early 80s, obviously we didn't see them right away. But, they were presented to us when we were young. So when this was coming back up, that he was making the prequels, it was super exciting. And this one for me I think is the weakest of this trilogy. Like Greg mentioned, there's the fantastic kind of towards the end when when Anakin and Obi-Wan and they're kidnapped and all the Jedi showed up with the clone troopers. And they do that scene's awesome, and there's the fight between Django and Mace Windu, which is pretty dope. Dooku fight, I'm not as heavy on that as Chris is as far as the rankings, but there's a lot of storyline threads to Anakin becoming Vader in this, with him going and having the visions of his mother and chasing her down, things like that. There is the Django kind of thing. But like the biggest thing for me with this kind of trilogy and with this movie is I think Chris is right a little bit where it doesn't have the heart in this one as much as the last one with Revenge does. And even with Phantom, I think it has a little bit more heart, but I just it's also wild to think about. Like Phantom comes out and it's like, I think it's like 3 years later in 2002 it comes Clones comes out, and it's like it's a 10-year jump for it. So there's a little bit, I think, that was like a readjustment there where it's like, oh, Anakin's like all grown up now, like how long has this been? And I think that's part of my, I don't know, for some reason, maybe it's just because of the actors, but it's almost like there's such a huge jump that you're like, wait, what happened? And being a kid watching this is like, what happened? What's going on? What's the Senate? What's the Republic? What's going on? Who's overthrowing who? Why are there so many problems? And I mean, that's part of the problem with Phantom too, which we'll get to. But yeah, this movie, number 10 on my list. Not a huge fan, but it's one of those things where, I'll throw it to you guys really quick, just any final notes on this one, but like rewatching or like revisiting, because I didn't rewatch everything, before we did the pod. As busy as our lives are, it's hard to dedicate 11 Star Wars movies. But it's like, even though it's low on our list, it's like, it's still, I don't know, it's still a Star Wars movie to me. And it's like, I don't know, there's like something about it where it's like, even though we trash on it, we hate it, it's like, yeah, it's still got cool moments, and it's still got some, it still has a storyline to it. And I think that's kind of the big thing. And when we talk really quick, just I'll finish with this. When we talk about the recent trilogy, like that's the problem for me, is like the storyline just doesn't hold up and it jumps too far. Like this has a thread that you can trace from like Anakin's beginnings, whether some of the other stuff fits, like you can see Anakin's transition really well. And again, like Chris said, you can make the case, like, is it the best person to do it? But it's like you're literally stepping into like some of the biggest shoes of like a Vader, you know what I mean? And like trying to be the person who isn't Vader yet. And it's like, so I think there's a lot of issues. We could do a whole pod on trying to Hayden Christensen trying to be Vader, to be honest with that. So yeah.
I would like to add on, kind of touching on what Hans had said about is it the performance, is it the script, is it the direction, is it some combination of those? My personal belief is it's the direction and the script, and not necessarily the performance or the performers. I've only seen Hayden Christensen in these movies and Life as a House, and I thought he was good in Life as a House. Natalie Portman, we know, can act.
Yeah.
So I just
Ewan
think
McGregor
that,
too.
yeah, exactly. Ewan McGregor. So I think that this is probably more so Lucas and the script than, you know, the actors and actresses. Just my take.
No, fair argument there. I wouldn't argue that.
All right, let's move on to the next. What do we got, Hans?
All right, the next is the latest release, which is Rise of Skywalker. Came out 2019. Had a lot of hype coming around it. Finishing up the new trilogy off of the unnecessary hate that The Last Jedi gets, but we'll follow up on that a little bit. I had this for mine as 9 out of the 11. I went into it with a lot of
Too high.
really it's very high expectations. And you know, and a lot of that is just because I'm like a lifetime Star Wars fan. And you know, I think once I saw the movie at first, it was kind of just like, I feel like I was like, all right, I would probably give that like a solid like 7. And then like I watched it again and I like kind of like thought about it. I'm like, the movie wasn't that good. Like it really, and a lot of that has to do with, and I'm pretty sure it has to do with the fact that like, given that like Harry's point of the older trilogy having like a continuous story, I think Lucas at least had that going on. And even with the original trilogy, there was a pretty solid story there. I think a lot of the new trilogy was throwing it against the wall and seeing what sticks. They brought back Palpatine for absolutely no reason whatsoever. You established two very what I thought, like, I love Kylo Ren as a villain. I loved Snoke as a villain for the short time. Also, anyone who's made it this far this episode, spoiler alert. I thought Snoke was a great villain for Last Jedi. Like, I think it kind of filled the Emperor's shoes, and it's not necessarily like, but I think once you bring him in, like even with the trailer, I was a little hesitant to say like, all right, well, you hear him laugh, and Ian McDiarmid was like, you know, promoting the movie saying he's in it, and I think it just like bringing J.J. Abrams back, as much as I'm a fan of his, I think really messed up the direction of what Rian Johnson kind of set in place for to finish the trilogy. I don't know if they gave into fan feedback to say like, all right, now we're not going to make a Star Wars movie. We're going to make a fan movie to say like, what are all these things we want to happen? Oh, well, we don't want Rey to be a Skywalker. We want Rey to actually be like someone. And of course she's a clone. She's the granddaughter of Palpatine. Like, no, like fans weren't happy that she had to be related to someone major in the Star Wars trilogy. I will say that actually Rise has some really cool moments. When I love actually the lightsaber scene on I forget what planet they're on, between Rey and Kylo right before he becomes
Endor?
Ben again. Is it Endor? I don't know. The one with
I
the
think
giant, where they're fighting on the second Death Star.
Yeah.
I think that lightsaber fight is amazing. I think there's a lot of cool visuals in it, and you know, I think that they've really. It took 3 movies to really show how powerful like Kylo Ren is. Like, I think of most of the new trilogy, I've watched that lightsaber fight like more than any of them, and like Kylo Ren is like it's very powerful in that entire fight. But then they kind of made him Ben again, which I'm fine with having that kind of making him good again. But I just think that the whole thing at the end with Palpatine, the whole storyline was just kind of like way too forced in. And I think that's what kind of killed it for me, because it was just really, it became a fan service and not necessarily like they didn't stick with their own direction, which is annoying in that type of like, as a Star Wars fan, to say, like, to hear stories of them saying they were just basically coming up with ideas on the spot. And I think it kind of is a slap in the face to Star Wars fans to kind of close out the new trilogy and tell like basically 9 episodes of movies. But I mean, I kind of, I don't want to go on a long rant about it, but it really left like a really bad, a really bad stink that I like still smell like 2 years later. And yeah, that was my last before COVID, my last trip to the movies. So it was kind of that probably even set me down a little longer too. So
Burnt you out, huh?
yeah. So I don't know. What do you guys think? I said a lot in terms of it. I don't know what you guys. I know Greg, it's a little higher for you.
Yes,
but
so I had it ranked eighth for me. I don't think that it was the worst or even I guess the bottom third. But look, I mean, JJ was painted into a corner. Spoiler alert, I did not like The Last Jedi. We'll talk more about that when we get to The Last Jedi. But he had to course correct, and it Ryan Johnson made it very, very tough to course correct with some of the story choices that he made. So JJ was kind of painted into a corner, and I felt like he did the best he could given what he had to work with. I mean, Snoke was, set up to be a big bad. He got killed off. Kylo didn't really look like they were going for the redemption arc, and they ended up having to redeem him. Luke was killed off in Last Jedi, so what do we do with him? And he was a miser at that. So what do we do with him in Rise of Skywalker, and how do we continue that Skywalker legacy? He was just dealt a bad hand, and he had to deal with it the best that he could. So the movie suffered, obviously, but I don't think that it was the worst possible thing that was put on screen. I'm a big fan of Emperor Palpatine. I admit some of the stuff with him bringing him back was a little shaky, but I was happy to see him. I thought the closeout of the trilogy with Rey taking the name was a little hokey, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think, probably the losers in this were Finn. I felt like he kind of got the shaft with his character. Captain Phasma, who didn't even make it into the movie because of choices that were made from Last Jedi. She was another cool character. And I don't know.
I think Kelly Marie Tran and I went to bring that up too.
Yeah.
Like she got sidelined, which I thought and when we get to Last Jedi, we'll kind of talk to her edition. But I think they put her in. I think she's in the movie for, I don't know, less than 4 minutes.
Yeah.
And with the way they set her up for the love interest for Finn, and she's just kind of in the background for pretty much 99.5% of this movie.
And you know what? It's a bummer too, because she got such crap online from quote unquote fans after The Last Jedi that just to spite them, they should have given her a bigger role, because I mean it would have been warranted anyway, because her character was great. That was one of the things I really liked about The Last Jedi, was the addition of the new female characters. But yeah, just to kind of spite those haters and say, hey, look, you ignorant jerks, we're gonna give more time for her.
Right.
And yeah, they didn't do that, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, I can't go on too much more about this movie, because there wasn't. It's middle of the road for me. It's not great, but it's not the worst thing on my list either. So, Howard, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, this movie's an absolute dumpster fire. It's the worst movie on my list.
Okay.
We talked a little bit offline about it before we started, but we were talking about how much we've watched Star Wars, and this I know for a fact is I will never revisit this movie.
Wow.
If it's ever on, I might check it out, but this movie, and as much as I enjoy Last Jedi, these two movies have absolutely ruined the reason why we're not getting a Star Wars movie every year. Whatever side you're on, whether you like Rise, whether you like Last Jedi, the reason why everything's been put on pause movie wise is because of these two movies.
All right, be honest. You're extra freaked out because Rey had pointy teeth. You're too scared. You don't want to revisit That's why.
Exactly. No, it's before the pod, we're doing our research, and you're fine tuned and everything. I'm watching clips of this movie and watching summaries, and the whole third act of this movie is an absolute mess. It's a joke of a movie. Throughout even the start of the movie, when Kylo Ren goes to find the Sith Wayfinder and get that and all this stuff, and I'll be honest, like for me, like the Star Wars, like prior to Mandalorian and, as we'll talk about Visions, I'm not really a guy who's dove into the Star Wars, lore. I never read any of the books. I didn't watch the Clone Wars show. Like, not that it wasn't for me. It was just one of those things of like, where do you jump in at? So like the trilogies for me are obviously the biggest thing. So, but like this one, it just misses the mark on so many levels. Hux being a spy at some point, the whole, Ben Solo / Kylo Ren, like which side is he going to choose? That's built up through all three movies, and I love Kylo Ren. I'm a huge Kylo Ren fan. There's just so much in this movie that just makes me so mad. I saw this movie like when movies were doing the whole 24 hours around the clock. I saw it like 4 a.m. My wife was supposed to stay up with me. She fell asleep. She didn't wake up in time. She set an alarm, and I went and saw this movie alone in Dolby and absolutely hated every moment of it. There's moments when you're watching a bad movie and you like raise your eyebrows or you go, huh? And you make that face. I made that so many times in this movie. It absolutely frustrates me to talk about it. I would like to move on. This movie's garbage, and it almost, I would say, no, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. I was just gonna say, I mean, it has its moments. Like there are moments in here that made me feel, when you think that Chewie bit the dust, and he's
but
gone.
They're so scared to pull the trigger on that because they already did it with Han, that they circle back in some hokey way and be like, they make you feel that, and then they rip that back from you. You're like, oh, Chewie's alive, no worries, we're all good, we're moving on. Like they take that away, that moment of feeling away from you by being like, sorry, just kidding, didn't really happen.
What about seeing Lando again, or like hearing the voices of the Jedi encouraging Rey? I mean, like, those moments give you goosebumps, man.
So Lando returning is cool, but Lando's returning because of the problems of the Last Jedi and them not using the characters that they've already implemented. When you think about the prequels and you think about the original trilogy, like they use characters in there that make sense and continue on through progressions and grow throughout the other movies. Even with Lando in Empire Strikes Back to when he comes back in Return of the Jedi, there's an arc there for him. There's just no arc for, as we talked about with Kelly Marie Tran, even Finn's character. Like there's things that like, even if it doesn't like have the full weight of like, I love that, but like, and I go back to the original trilogy. It was like people grew up and they wanted to be either Luke or they wanted to be Han, or, some people really enjoyed Lando. And it was like, there were characters that you could look to and be like, I want to be that person because I know this much about them. With this movie specifically, they're throwing in, JJ's calling up his girl, I forget her name, who helps Poe get off the planet. What's the actress's name? She's on that show. Anyway, but she shows up and it's just like they're bringing Lando back because it's like, hey, we gotta like try and like there's things like that where it's like, hey, we're gonna kill Chewie. Nah, actually, we're not going to because we know how much you guys all love Chewie. So we're not gonna do. It's just so much like of those moments I feel like are robbed a little bit because of just how poor this movie is. So that's my spiel on that. So yeah, I absolutely hate this movie. It's the only movie I will say out of all these that frustrate me. Like when I think about the movies and it's like you find little parts to enjoy, like we just talked about with Clones. This one for me, I find nothing enjoyable about it.
Wow.
Rough.
Sorry, everyone.
No.
All right.
Hey.
Well, why don't you tell us what you find enjoyable about the next movie on our list?
Let's do it.
That was a lot to take in.
Everybody take some processing in. So
you take a break.
So the next movie on our list, as we talk about our rankings, and is number 9 on our list, and it's The Phantom Menace. So, I'm sure as you guys will see, we're talking about the prequels a lot early because they are a little bit of a mess. So for me, I was super excited in 1999. I was 11 years old. Was super looking forward to this movie. Was so excited to see the story of how, in the poster, the iconic poster of, Anakin walking, in the shot of the Vader shadow behind him. There's a lot of problems with this movie, though. We could start with Naboo. And as soon as Jar Jar shows up, the movie's got problems. And I would say out of the 3 movies of the prequels, this one probably has the worst CGI, or definitely hasn't aged very well. There's a lot of bright colors, and they do I think there's a very colorful palette to the movie, but it just doesn't show up well, even as we've moved into high definition. And on a different podcast, I would talk about how this trilogy is absolutely dwarfed by the Lord of the Rings trilogy, which comes out a couple of years later, and just totally does everything right and proper. But that's for another pod. But besides the Jar Jar issues, I would even say the Naboo, and you get into a lot of the politics early on in this movie, where for an 11-year-old, you're kind of just like, huh? Can we just talk about how Jedis exist and all that stuff? And they try to circle back to that, when they go to get Anakin, and Qui-Gon, and, they have to land on the planet. And I love the pod racing. That's a very fun, I guess 30, kind of first half of the movie. I think it's thrilling. I think it's cool. I think it's exciting. I think it's something different. But the best thing obviously about this movie is when Darth Maul shows up. He's, I think he gets, I don't want to say underrated as a villain, because I think he's like probably like everybody's, favorite behind Vader. I mean, I know there's some other probably characters in books or in the shows that, people would mention. But the fight with him, the score, when Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan go up against him is absolutely incredible. I think it's worth the price of admission just for that. The kid Anakin stuff is a little bit kind of like, I didn't have a problem with it too much because I was 11, like I said. So kind of like you're relating to that in a way. It's not as much of, when we talk about Force Awakens later, it's not as much of like a copycat as A New Hope. But for me, this movie, it's definitely not the lowest one on my list, as I've made perfectly clear on which one is the lowest movie of this generation for it. But this was number 8 on my list. I think I was the highest on it out of all you guys, which helped bump it up a little bit. Yeah, awesome for me. But yeah, let me know what you guys. Is there anything I missed on that? It's just Hans. What are your thoughts on Phantom?
Back on May 19th, 1999, this was a movie that I watched half of it, and then I walked out of because I did not like it.
Wow.
Had to go back in. I was 14 years old. Had to go back because someone told me who saw
Somebody
it.
had to drive me back
and said, "Hey, you walked out, dum-dum. You missed out on like a really cool like lightsaber, like with that guy." At the time, like I don't think we knew Darth Maul's name. Or I don't know. They're like the guy with the red face. Yeah. They're like he has a double-edged lightsaber. I'm like, oh, all right. Well, I guess I shouldn't have left. Now I got to pay twice. I agree. The politics stuff of that movie is like for a 14-year-old. It's not. It doesn't need to be in there. This is a 2.5-hour movie. I watched it like maybe 2-3 years ago, and I just felt like it kept going and going and going. And I agree. I honestly hate Jar Jar Binks with so much passion. Like he is my least favorite Star Wars character. But every time like I hear him talk and like it just Misa Jar Jar Binks, like it's thank you. It's just dumb. And he's like a useless character. And I got really like scared when Rise came out because everyone's saying like, what if this theory is true that Jar Jar has been behind it all the whole time? Which technically, if you look at some of the like the logistics of it, he might have been, but it like, but it's not like it wasn't like his decision. He was getting played. But the only redeeming factor this movie has is Darth Maul. Everything else, and Ewan McGregor. And I think that it just, I think when they threw in like the whole, like the politics of it, and there's like, it's a lot to ask for someone to sit through. And this was before movies, like the average movie time was 2.5 hours. Like this was with like 2:15, like before previews. So I think they tried to put a lot in there. I think the kid who played Anakin, Jake, I forget his name.
Jake Lloyd.
Yeah. He's a terrible actor, but he's a kid, so I'll let him slide. But he is
harsh there.
It's fine. He's a terrible actor.
Are you an angel?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that just thinking about it just drives me nuts. But yeah, it just I can't I think and Liam Neeson, like you got to give some Liam Neeson love. I think he was good, and of course they do. You know, the only logical thing is kill off one of your best characters right away. But okay, and then this is the first time we get CGI Yoda. But I think I named everything. This movie stinks. And Warwick Davis is in it, so that's cool.
I think didn't they do a puppet Yoda for this and then they went to CGI because the puppet they did was terrible?
Maybe
you might be right.
I'll look into that.
I think you might be right. Yeah, because there's a lot of him in the chair at the council a lot.
Yeah. You know what? Yeah. That was before he
around.
Before you realize that he can, still duel in a lightsaber fight.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, those were my thoughts. It was the first movie, I think, one of maybe 3 movies I may have walked out of. But I did go back just to see the lightsaber fight. So
I would like to journey back to 1999. Set the scene here. This movie, the hype for it was so unreal. Like, we joked around earlier about, buying a ticket and leaving just for the Venom post-credit scene, but people legit did that for the trailer for this. They would go to see the trailer for whatever movie it was on, watch the trailer for Phantom Menace, get a refund and leave. I just remember how like tickets were sold out everywhere. And if you got a ticket, man, it was like winning the lottery. Like it was like a Wonka golden ticket. So the hype for this was unimaginably high. And I mean, it was the first Star Wars movie in 16 years. It was crazy. People thought they were done with Star Wars. But the merchandise kind of kept the franchise alive, and Lucas decided, hey, let's go back and revisit this. I had this movie ranked exactly where the average ranked it, which is 9th place. I agree with a lot of the points that you guys said. I think this movie's a super bomb bad. And
wow, you guys are good.
Yeah, it's unfortunately the movie's not, but the politics stuff, it's just, and look, you want to add politics in and everything, that's fine, but like Lucas came out and said multiple times, this is a movie for kids, it's a fantasy movie, that's why we have a character like Jar Jar. Well, then why are you throwing in stuff about trade federations and separatists and having decoy queens and like, it's all of this stuff that is like,
it's almost like a political
up here,
thriller.
man. Yeah, it's way over the heads of the target audience. So unless you're of a certain age, you're not going to get it. And even then, it's probably a lot. Like you said, it's kind of plotting at 2.5 hours, definitely chunky. And they probably could have cut out a lot of that stuff. Jar Jar wasn't a fan, but I mean, I did enjoy Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon Jinn quite a bit. It was cool seeing the Jedi Council and the Jedi at the height of their powers. Oh, something you guys didn't mention, which I absolutely hate, is they introduced midi-chlorians to the lore.
Right, that's right.
Awful.
I forgot about that.
Like skip by that, but
I forgot about that nugget of Star Wars lore.
Yes. So unfortunately, there's that. But for the most part, it's not a bad movie. I know our buddy Tim really likes this movie. He enjoys it a lot. I'm not going to say again, it's just a complete travesty because there are some saving graces to it. But yeah, I don't know. It's not great.
I will say, like, one of the best things that came out of this movie and even the new the prequel trilogy was the movie Fanboys. If you haven't seen it. And that has one of my favorite lines, like end lines of the movie, is when they're sitting in the theater and they finally get in there. And the one guy says, he's like, "Hey guys," they're like, What? He's like, "What if it sucks?" And then it just goes to black. And I'm like, that is my favorite and one of my favorite endings to a movie. It's so good. But I think that movie's very underrated, and I honestly would consider like putting that during a live action Star Wars movie.
Come on,
it's better than Phantom Menace.
Yeah, but there's like equal amount Star Trek stuff in there too. Once they get to the convention,
yeah.
So.
Yep.
Man, that's a good point though. All right, well, that's our Phantom Menace talk. Anybody else have anything to add before we move on?
I don't think so. I've said my piece on that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean,
Pat.
I think it's just like it's similar to what we talked about when we did our kind of Marvel list and when we do our Fast and Furious list. It's like even though I put it at 8, and Greg, I know you had it at 9. It's one of those things where it's just like it's not. There's like things to enjoy about it. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like I kind of arc it again doing the Lord of the Rings thing. It's like it's kind of like watching the Hobbit movies. As opposed to the Lord of the Rings trilogy. It's like they're okay, and there's I mean, I think they're better than this prequel trilogy in some moments, but it's kind of like that. Like, yeah, it's not for me, but if it's on, like I'll definitely kind of watch it and be like, oh yeah, that part, or oh, this scene's coming up. So it's got some moments for sure.
Okay. Hans, what do we got next?
Next, we have the what year? Jesus, 2015. The spin-off of Star Wars, the second of the spin-offs that they had was Solo. I had this I think higher than both of you guys on my list. I think I was around like 8, maybe 8. Yeah. I think this gets a lot of undeserved hatred. I'm gonna mess up his name, Alden Reich or whatever his name, whatever. I think he was like, you're not gonna get Harrison Ford to come back and do like a Han Solo movie. Like, this isn't the Howard Stern Private Parts documentary or movie where he played himself. I think he was a good addition to the cast. I think. I know, right?
I know, on a Star Wars pod.
No one's gonna.
I do love that movie though.
Yeah. That's every time I think of someone playing, like I could go Forrest Gump or that where they're playing like a 19-year-old and they're really like 55. Lost my train of thought. Donald Glover as Lando. I think he's phenomenal in this movie. Amelia Clark, who I know Harry loves her from we all know her from Game of Thrones and a few other movies that weren't quite successful. But I really think like as a spinoff, I think there are some kind of like rough moments in here. Like, how did he get the name Han Solo? I think that was kind of dumb, where just because he was traveling alone and someone's like, oh, we're going to call you Han Solo. Like, that's it. It couldn't just be his name. And I think with the like showing how him and Chewie met up, his relationship with Lando, of how he got the Falcon, I actually do really, really enjoy it. I think the cast in this is great. I think the story's interesting. Like, I was more interested in this story than I was through pretty much all of the prequels for most of them, and even some of the sequels. It wasn't a story that needed to be told, but I'm glad they told it. I think it was kind of cool. And we get the return of Darth Maul, who, thanks to probably, the new trilogy, we're never going to get a live action Darth Maul again. So, so that's sad. But, yeah, I think that, what's the one character who was in, I can't think of her name, but she was in Falcon and Winter Soldier.
The
young girl. I can't think of her name right now. She was great, and I think and I think she would have come back if they do a sequel. I know there's like a big, heavy like Twitter following to make Solo 2 happen, which
Erin Kellyman is her name.
Yes,
she plays.
She's great in this. She's great in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And Paul Bettany's in it. You get on most of the movies he's in, he knocks it out of the park. What?
I didn't really care for his Strider Voss. I mean, I thought that was a weaker point of the movie.
All right. Well,
you keep going. You keep going.
Agree to disagree. I would be really excited to see kind of where how Solo 2 happens. The only thing that I know is I don't know if it would make sense to kind of make a sequel, because I'm pretty sure Alden Solo and Harrison Ford Solo are 3 years apart. So I don't know how much content you're going to get out of that. I don't know. I think they told I think they shoved a lot of Han Solo backstory, lore that we had questions on into one movie. They were like, hey, here's the Kessel Run, here's the blah 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 blah. And I think they could have maybe stretched that out for maybe at least another movie. I would love to see a Solo 2. I know a lot of people don't want to, but I'm part of that Twitter following. So I know Greg, you had this ranked. I mean, both of you guys had it ranked lower than me. But what do you think, Papa? Where do you start off?
Yeah, so I had Solo ranked 10th, which is next to last place. I just didn't like the movie. I mean, it wasn't a train wreck per se. I wouldn't even put it in the same level as like the last movie on my list, but I just, first of all, I didn't think the story needed to be made. Now, the difference between this and Rogue One, which I also think didn't need to be made, was that Rogue One executed so well versus Solo, where it was just like, it's a big meh. Like, Lando was cool, but I really didn't care about the rest of the movie at all. It was one thing after another where it's like, this could have been anybody. Like, why's it got to be Han? And, maybe this movie suffered because of, the creative process. I believe Lord and Miller were the directors for this. And then Lucasfilm didn't like the tone. So they got booted or they left, whatever. And then Ron Howard came on. Alden Ehrenreich supposedly was not giving the performance that they wanted, whoever the directors were, and he had to have an acting coach on set to help him. I mean, it was just like problem after problem, and look, the product is middling at best for the end result, I should say, for me. So all of those woes show. It was, again, a totally unnecessary thing, and what they presented to us, it just didn't matter to me. I mentioned it to you guys prior to the show. This is the only movie of the live action Star Wars that I don't own and that I only saw once. I saw it in theaters, and I don't plan on revisiting it just because it's a waste of my time. I know how I felt about it, and it's like I don't care to see it again, and I definitely wouldn't care for a sequel when there's so many other avenues that they could explore. I'm also not a fan of like revisiting, some of these characters. Like, sure, it was cool when they did Luke and the Mandalorian, and I think that's because, there's a lot of Luke stories that were left up in the air, and I think fans were unhappy with how he was portrayed in Last Jedi. So there was that, but like nobody was clamoring to see Han, and we knew we weren't going to get Harrison Ford back, and how could anybody hope to live up to Harrison Ford in the first place? And that's why I don't want to see a sequel of Indiana Jones also, where like not even, but this is before they actually got him signed on, but they were talking about having maybe Chris Pratt step into the role of Indiana Jones, and it's like, but he's not Harrison Ford, and it's like I don't care for that. So sure, there might be some people out there that do, but anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. Solo, not great for me. Don't plan on revisiting it. Howard, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think, obviously it's funny because I have it ranked 9th on our list, so one spot behind where we actually ranked it. And it's funny because I'm in the middle of you guys on it. I don't think I would revisit it, but I also don't think it's as great as Chris says. But I think there's some really good things to it. So I just will say, like, I agree with you, Greg, where it's like, if they made a Luke movie, like you're kind of dealing with like the same thing. Like, I know there was a lot of Sebastian Stan, like, should play, Luke Skywalker and all this stuff. And it's like, there's a lot of like, when I was talking about filling the shoes and with Hayden Christensen, you're just like giving people, you're not allowing people to succeed because there's so much expectations that they have to perform perfectly, and all it takes is one person. Like, if Sebastian Stan, let's say he does do a Luke thing and it's like he is perfect, all of a sudden now that resets the bar and everybody's like, oh well, we could do this person, we could do this person, we could do this person. I mean, even look at somebody like Boba Fett. Like, they brought back the same actor, for it, who played Django. But it's like he's out of shape in this costume, and it's like he's doing all these flips, and it's like, because people like have such a thing for nostalgia. But anyway, going on to this movie, I kind of enjoyed kind of the origin story. I know Chris said it was a little bit cheesy kind of when they talk about his name, and while I agree with that, I kind of enjoyed kind of a different tone. I will say it was kind of dark. I remember a lot of complaints when the movie first came out, like that people felt like that kind of opening scene, especially when he gets on to the planet as an Imperial in the Imperial Flight Academy, like being really dark. I thought the train heist was cool. I liked Beckett, Woody Harrelson's Beckett. Again, wasn't a huge fan of Dryden Voss, even though, Chris was a fan. I'm sorry, Chris. Love Amelia Clark in this. Absolutely. Like, I just need her to get more work that's like valued. I need her to stop doing big things and like slow down and do some like gritty independent stuff where she can show her real charm. Because she's great. Love Lando in this, like we talked about. I think this movie, everything works in this movie for me, but Alden Ehrenreich's like Han Solo. And it's like every kind of other character, like even as much as I don't like Dryden Voss, like I just feel like we could have just made a smugglers movie, like, and just kind of done something like that and like filled in these pieces. Or, maybe if they made it a Lando movie where it's like a, not so high of a peak to reach. Like, I mean, I love Lando, but it's like, maybe that was the move. Phoebe Waller-Bridges character, what was the droid's name? It was like L337 or something. I think brings the humor in that one for it as well. And then I mean, there's not much to say about this movie other than like it's kind of fine. Like, was it as bad as I thought it was going to be? No, but like, again, does it have that repeatability factor for me? No. It tried to set up another one, but I don't think that's ever going to get made. I think they, again, I said it earlier just a minute ago, but like, I think they really missed with their Han Solo to like even try to attempt to do something. I mean, they have Donald Glover as Lando if they want to revisit that world and kind of piece it together. But I have to retract a statement that I made earlier in the pod. When I said the Last Jedi and Rise of Skywalker, if you look at the last three movies, it's Last Jedi in 2017, this in 2018, and Rise in 2019. And these three movies have absolutely broken the path of what they were going on for their movies. So, just disappointing. Again,
thankfully Mando's there to patch up the franchise.
Mando, love Mando, exactly. Mando, Visions, because
if it wasn't for Mando,
good. Other things salvaging it. The what was it? The video game too. I forget. Even that like is a better story than half of these movies that we've talked about so far. Wow, what a frustrating journey so far, but it's gonna get better, folks. I promise. Again, it's one of those things where like if you had titled this movie anything else and kind of done it as like an original story, like it's almost like, wow, that was a pretty fun movie. I think this thing suffers from being called Solo, and having to live up to the expectation of creating a Han Solo character. My final thoughts on that.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, Hans, on Solo?
No, I agree with your opinions. You guys made good points. Maybe I'm a little too high on it than I should be.
No, you gotta retract your signature from change.org. Get Solo to me.
Yeah. I just remember I was quiet through all of that because I was deleting all my posts on Twitter and say make Solo 2 happen.
I like it.
All right, passion for it, Hans.
Moving on. Next up at number 7. We have Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. So this is fairly in line with what I had it. I had it slightly higher at number 6, but I really enjoy this movie. I think it's the best of the prequel movies. I think that the acting improves a little bit from Hayden and Natalie, although that could just be that the script is better. There's a lot of drama in this. Because obviously, we're seeing the final stages of the turn to Darth Vader from Anakin Skywalker. We see Palpatine come out in full force as Darth Sidious. A lot of cool moments there. The fateful duel on Mustafar between Obi-Wan and Anakin. There's just a lot of really cool moments in this. And, while the dialogue might not be perfect or anything, it certainly makes up for it. You guys mentioned Attack of the Clones kind of being hollow, not necessarily having heart. And I like this is the opposite of that. This has some heart, and there's definitely a core to it. So I really liked it. I have fond memories of seeing this in theaters, and I remember we even had mini posters to give out for Father's Day for Anakin being on there. But yeah, I thought this was a really solid addition to the franchise and a good way to wrap up the trilogy, the prequel trilogy. Oh, and Order 66. I mean, Order 66 is cool, seeing the extermination of the Jedi and the oh man, that Jedi temple scene with the Padawans.
The darkest scene in Star Wars history.
Yeah, it's pretty dark.
Lightsaber click on. So yeah, I don't know. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a worthy addition to the franchise for sure. Hera, what are your thoughts on Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, I mean, this one I think does a really good job of, like, we'll talk about Rogue One a little later as well, but I think this does a really good job of linking to A New Hope. Like, even though A New Hope comes, you know, in whatever years, I think how many years you wanna call it, or whatever the exact total is, it does a good job of leading up to that. You know, with Anakin, you know, he has the executing of Dooku. You know, he's obviously, you know, slain all those people, you know, after his mother died in Clones. You know, he's having fears of, you know, Padme and the childbirth and like her being in pain and possibly dying. Palpatine in his ear whispering, you know, there are ways, there's different things you can do. We talked about Order 66, you know, the rage that he shows on the Mustafar fight, you know, with just the disregard for anything other than, you know, what he wants. So there's a lot of threads and through lines there, and you can see it, you know, kind of, again, you see it in the original trilogy, you know, as well. And this one does have heart, you know, and you see the grip with Obi-Wan, you know, trying not to believe it, you know, how could Qui-Gon be wrong? You know, that kind of has been talked about in the other movies, you know, that we talked about as well. Obviously, as you mentioned, Greg, it's the highest one on the prequels for our list. I had it actually ranked right where we ranked it at 7. Yeah, it's a solid movie. I think it's the best of the, as we talked about, the best of the new trilogy. I remember seeing this with my dad, and it was like one of the first times I remember like going to see, I think, one of the Star Wars movies in theaters, as weird as that is to say. Because as you mentioned with Phantom, like I don't think it was ever a chance to get tickets, and then it was like out, you know, at being 11 years old, you don't really have control over being like, hey, I want to go to the movies. You know, and then Clones came out. And I think I just might have missed that in theaters because of just, you know, whatever. But anyway, but yeah, Revenge of the Sith, definitely. I think it's in its right spot, as I said, with 7 hands. What are your feelings on Revenge of the Sith?
I completely agree that it is actually the best of the trilogy, but I mean that's like I don't want to say that's not saying much, because I actually do enjoy this. I really do enjoy Revenge of the Sith as much as, like, now I have it ranked was it 8th? I actually have it ranked right below Solo, but you know, now that
why are you so low on it?
Now what I might do is switch that around after our recent conversation.
Hey!
So no, I think that, you know, there is a lot, like, they take a lot of the politics out that we talked about, and I think there is a lot more like emotion to this. And I've like kind of said this before, like I don't necessarily think that this is not an Anakin trilogy. I think it's more of an Obi-Wan trilogy overall, because I think like you get to basically see Obi-Wan through, he's one of the first people you see, and you see his journey basically training Darth Vader and failing him.
Yeah.
So I think that's I think a lot of people call it the, like, you know, the Darth Vader trilogy, but you know, I think there's a lot more to make the argument that, like, especially with this, it does like kind of, I don't want to say closes out Obi-Wan's story, because we still get him in A New Hope and he's getting his own show soon, which is great with Ewan McGregor. But I think the fight, the lightsaber scene with him and Anakin is choreographed so well. It's a really phenomenal, like, it's like, I feel like it's like 40 minutes long. Like it goes on, and you
feel that emotion in it too.
Yeah, it's a good score to that one too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. That's not Duel of the Fates. It's
called Battle of the Heroes.
Battle of the Heroes, Duel of the Fates. You know, but Battle of the Heroes, I think, is I would have loved if they used that in the fight with Rey and Kylo in Rise. That would have been cool to put that over. But yeah, I mean, it takes a lot of like the dumb fluff from the first two movies and kind of, I don't want to say gets rid of them, but starts to tie things up. And, we get to see Palpatine. Like, we all knew who he was. Like, that was no surprise, but it's cool to see him how it come out. We get to see Mace Windu get killed in a weird way. You just get shot out the window.
Actually, there was no body found. We don't know if he's dead.
So he might be back. Actually, funny without going on like too much. There's a funny like post I saw somewhere where they're like, it's a picture of Palpatine getting like shooting him with lightning or something, and when Mace Windu's like basically deflecting it back at him, he's like, stop it, and someone's like, he's deflecting the lightning you're shooting at him, you stop.
I sent that in our group text.
Oh, was that where I saw it? Okay, sorry, I knew I saw it. I feel like I saw it on Twitter, and then all right, then you would send it too. But yeah, I'm sorry, I apologize that you said
I was like, wait a second, that meme sounds familiar.
Do you know how many
liked it on Twitter?
Do you know how many memes I see a day?
Meme Lord.
Yes.
Oh, well, thank you for sending that.
You're welcome.
But no, I think this was a good way to close out the original trilogy. Like, we do get a lot of meme material out of this movie, but I think there's a lot of really cool scenes. Like, especially when going back to the like emotion factor, when the last time that Obi-Wan and Anakin see each other is where he thinks like basically Anakin's gonna burn alive, and he walks away. I think that whole scene is great. The whole high ground scene. I always laugh whenever the little younglings, goes to Anakin. He's like, Master Skywalker, there's too many of them. What are we gonna do? And you see the lightsaber, and you're like, uh-oh. Like, and then the whole killing younglings dialogue. So cheesy, but I love it. No, this is. I think I maybe was a little too harsh on it when I had first seen it, but I think when I rewatched like over the years, I'm like, this actually is a good movie. I would cut out a little bit of it, like the whole General Grievous part. I think that's a little kind of just
General
stuffed in there.
Kenobi.
Yeah.
General Kenobi.
Yeah. Yeah, what's he say? This would make a fine addition to my collection. And he has like 14 lightsabers.
So many good memes.
Yeah.
I will say with this one, this is the first one on our list where, like, if it's on TV, I'll stop and watch it. Like,
oh yeah,
for sure. The others, not so much. This one, I will definitely stop and watch.
I think there is a lot of enjoyability with this, and I like I said, you can take out the Grievous part. It's kind of like, I think that's the like only political thing that like kind of is still in here. But if you take that out, it's still. I actually probably would rank the movie a little higher because if it was like a little shorter. But that him and Kenobi fight was kind of cool. I'm not gonna say it wasn't, but I mean, you get a robot that's fighting with like 7 lightsabers. Well, but yeah, I'm gonna switch that, and so my own individual rankings with Solo. You guys talked me out of it.
Fair enough. Anything to add on Revenge of the Sith before we move on?
No, I mean, I think our rankings is, I would say so far probably are pretty consistent with what most people think. I think this trilogy, out of the 3 trilogies plus the other 2, is probably more the lower ranking, just because but like I said, I think a Revenge of the Sith is a really solid one, and you could make a case it could be higher on our list for sure if you ask me.
Time to buckle up for the next one.
Yeah. All right. What do we got here?
All right. So I will say, so next on our list is The Last Jedi. Now I will say when we were doing our rankings, and putting things together, I would say so far we fairly have been pretty accurate. Maybe somebody's got a thing a couple spots lower. But just for the listeners out there, I have this ranked as our number 5 movie. Hans has it ranked as our number 4 movie. And just to clarify, in case if anybody can't keep up, this is the number 6 movie on our list. And all the way at number 11, Papa has ranked this as his worst movie of the Star Wars universe, live action. So, as I mentioned before, I think, whether you fall on Papa's side or you fall on me and Chris's side, there's a case that this is kind of really divided Star Wars universe and kind of moved people, this one Solo and Skywalker have really hurt the community, I would say, and made us be distrustful about future Star Wars projects and concerned, I would say the least, of is this actually going to be good? But for me, there's a lot of things that I enjoy about Last Jedi. This is, we see it in Force Awakens, but there's more of the Kylo struggle. I really enjoy the rift between Rey and Kylo. We get to see some more things for better or for worse, as Greg will talk about, which I'll throw it to him, and then actually, I'll throw it to Hands after this. To get his good opinions.
Get the love fest out of the way so I can smash it all.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, as this movie says, what's the Kylo line? I all of a sudden forgot it, where he says he wants to break tradition, or what's the line that he says?
Let the past die.
Let the past die. So
Yeah.
that's what Greg wants right now. He wants the past to die. He wants this movie to be gone. For better or worse, there's the whole thing with Leia's powers. Luke's issues and struggles with being a Jedi is definitely a talking point, which we'll get into. I will say the Canto Bite stuff, not a huge fan. You could boil this down to this movie is similar to the beginning of Star Wars, A New Hope, where there's a ship being chased by the Empire, and how does that work out? So there's not really much that happens in this movie. It kind of really slows down from the previous film, Force Awakens, and absolutely slows down compared to the last one with all the stuff they're doing. There's the whole Holdo stuff and the maneuver at the end, which I think is incredible. The Captain Phasma stuff, which she ends up not being seen that she was killed, but falls off a thing. So
she did.
Sure. There's the Luke Force projection fight, which we'll get into as well. And then something that I think is a real nice touch, and I can't remember Papa's thoughts on this, but the Broom Boy scene at the end, I kind of really enjoyed that part of it. But that's just me. So I'll toss it over to Hands to give some more love, and then we'll dive into more deep specifics.
Okay, so where I'm at with this, can you guys still hear me? You good?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
Of course, yeah.
Something like it sounded like something
Greg's
like
being
like
really
playing.
restrained for the listeners at home.
Maybe that was it. Maybe that was
I
it.
see him turning red.
I'm letting the anger flow.
And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but I think that one of the reasons I like The Last Jedi because it was very different compared to other Star Wars movies. Like I feel like Force Awakens, there's an argument that Force Awakens is basically a rehash of A New Hope. I will agree with that in some aspects. You're not far off like that, but they had to get people back in the seats. And I think that The Last Jedi, I think where a lot of people, I'll start off by saying, I think one of the reasons a lot of people don't like it is because you have J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson who have two very different visions. And this is what I say going back.
Director. Yeah. One's a good director.
Well,
and his first initials are J and J.
No, get out of here with that garbage.
I feel like I'm stuck in the middle of this because I love JJ, but I love Last Jedi too. So I don't know, but I think that a lot of people were complaining that I feel like a lot of people complained that The Force Awakens was the same as A New Hope. So then you have Rian Johnson come along and does something completely different. And yes, it's I feel like Last Jedi and connects better to The Force Awakens than Last Jedi connects to Rise of Skywalker. I feel like 100%. It transitions pretty well off of The Force Awakens. I do agree that the whole Luke storyline was a little weird. I will give some credit to the haters on that and say they basically made him a weirdo. But then I'll come back.
You mean it wasn't cool seeing him drink freshly squeezed blue milk? Come on.
I enjoyed that. That was cool.
Stupid. Didn't need to be in it.
And that's what I'm saying. I don't.
He loves.
I would have loved to see. I would have loved to see a better kind of storyline for him. I love the whole fight with him and Kylo at the end where he was basically a force projection. I thought that was awesome because I didn't see it coming. But I think that I think it was just different. Like, it wasn't a rehash of Empire. It wasn't like they kind of took Star Wars in a different direction, is what I would have, which I wanted to see. I think that all the performances were great. I will say that the whole dreadnought scene in the beginning is a little like Poe's little comedy is a little overdone as well.
It.
I think it's some of it's kind of, but like I think it kind of stuck to their guns where like when you go like compared to like Last Jedi, I feel like JJ just like, and this goes to my argument where I say like they did not have a plan for the biggest franchise in the world. And like I would have like I think it would have turned out better if they said, all right, we're gonna make 3 movies. Bing, bing, bing. This is what like JJ's gonna direct the first one, Ryan's gonna do the second one, and this is what like as an executive producer and whatever Kathleen Kennedy's job is over there, just ruining things. She's like the president of Lucasfilm, just destroying it.
Well, that was their original plan, but then Colin Trevorrow or whoever was on the second one got the boot.
Yeah.
Third, or he was the third, or yeah, no,
one.
he's the third one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
All right.
one.
So here's what you do as an executive producer and like a president and all. Go back to the drawing board and don't fudge it up. Like, don't fudge up the whole trilogy by just basically throwing things. I almost said another word by just throwing things at the wall and be like, well, that works. Oh yeah, let's bring Palpatine back. Let's do all that. And I think Last Jedi like had it going in a very good direction of to set its characters up. I will agree. I don't like Canto Bright and that little kid at the end. I like that as well. It's a shame Last Jedi just forgot about him. Like that kid, like they literally just for like that was like you're like, oh man, he's force sensitive. Oh well, just let him keep sweeping up horse crap. He's fine in a stable. We're never gonna go back to him. Like I just that's why I'm hating Rise even more. But I think like Last Jedi was like a different type of Star Wars movie. Like it wasn't what everyone wanted, and I understand like Ryan. People think it was like a different direction, and Rian Johnson destroyed it. But I think it was more. I think it was more along the lines of giving us something fresh and different for Star Wars. But I'm gonna do something where it's probably I don't want to do because Harry and I talked like praise this movie. I'm gonna turn it over to Greg.
Clear out, everybody! Clear out.
Yeah, see what he has to say.
Yeah,
he's got the hot hand. Look out!
To quote Padme from Revenge of the Sith, "You're breaking my heart. You're going down a road I can't follow." Yeah, this movie is just look. Let me start with the positives because I do think there were some positives. I liked the new female characters, Rose Tico. I like General Holdo. Dude, seeing Yoda come back as a Force ghost, that gave me goosebumps. That was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Did you enjoy this? Did you enjoy the Snoke fight as well in Snoke's room, the throne room?
I mean,
I forgot
visually
it
was cool. It was cool, but like, I don't agree with what they did to Snoke. And probably the only other thing would be, hinting that Rey's parentage was, that she came from nobody, that she didn't have anybody of importance that she descended from. Other than that, you can take the rest of the movie and just chuck it straight in the trash can and set it on fire while you're at it, because this was absolute garbage. This movie, like, look, you can do Star Wars and subvert expectations and change it up while still keeping and retaining that essence of what it is. Because guess what? Mando does that. Guess what? Rogue One does that. Like, you don't have to be slavish and to the Skywalker saga itself, but you can still keep that feel of Star Wars. This doesn't do that, man. This isn't Star Wars for me. Like, making Luke Skywalker a joke and like Leia is, like, I didn't even mention this before, but like when I saw this in theaters, Leia, this was after Guardians of the Galaxy 2 had come out, and when Leia's floating through space, somebody yelled, "I'm Mary Poppins, y'all!" And I was like, "What a great call!" Because that's how friggin' silly this scene is. Like, it's just.
I will agree that I forgot. I honestly forgot all about that. That was really stupid.
Finn and Rey's story does not intersect, so I don't know. What was the point of building up a friendship in the first movie just to have them do nothing with it in this? Poe becomes a total jerk. You know, he's got people getting killed left and right, and he's callous. It's all about hunting the Empire and making jokes. And it's like, well, no, you just lost a squad. Man, there's so much wrong with this movie. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, sure. Okay, cool. But was the price of, you know, his people worth it? I mean, it's just, you know, Harry, you mentioned earlier with one of your picks or one of the movies that I think it was Rise of Skywalker. It just makes you mad when you watch it, and that's the way this movie makes me feel. You know, I just like, I don't agree with so much of it, even though there are some things that I like. It's just, it doesn't give me a good feeling to watch. And I'm not going to say, hey, this isn't Star Wars, because, you know, it is part of the franchise. I'm not going to gatekeep anybody, but it just did so much wrong that I don't want to go back to it. Like, I don't. So I don't know. That's my take on this movie. It's just a big dumb piece of crap.
Yeah, I mean, I think part of the problem, and like, you know, we could debate on JJ being not a good director and Ryan being a fantastic director all night. But like, it's not entirely their fault. Now, you could make the case of like, you don't like their specific movie, and then, you know, I made the case earlier about Skywalker that I don't like their movie. But bottom line, it's like, there's other people who have the money who like make these decisions and allowed all this to continue to roll down the hill.
I guarantee those changes were not, like, maybe Ryan had the idea, but at the end of the day, that stuff isn't getting approved without like Kathleen Kennedy say so. Yeah.
And I think, you know, another problem is that, you know, the first Star Wars movie came out in 1977. You know, this one, you know, whatever came out, you know, let's round up to 2020 just to, you know, get it all finished and figured. You have people who are probably in their 60s who were super excited to see this movie is, you know, and this trilogy come back and circle everything together. I think part of the problem with the way this was done is they should have given JJ the keys to this trilogy. And they should have had Rian Johnson be able to do his own, not even trilogy, standalone movie, whatever you want to do, where he can have this imprint and it doesn't feel like it's taking away for Greg.
Right.
You know, where for, you know, I would say, I think you're a
make
little
it
bit
as
more
weird as you want
than me. Yeah, exactly. You know, make it more like a solo, or, you know, even if you don't like success, it's doing something different, or even, you know, as we'll talk, because we haven't talked about it yet, Rogue One. So those are kind of the big things for me with it. As much as I enjoy it, and, you know, I will say, you know, obviously as you've listened to our director's pod, I'm a Rian Johnson supporter. So, you know, that obviously he's going to get my support, you know, just as Chris will support JJ. But yeah, no, I hear you with it. You know, this is, like I said, these three last movies, I mean, it's easy to see why the divide is there and why we're not getting a Star Wars movie every 2 or every year. You know, they've had to go back to the drawing board. I will say, you know, because this is such a polarizing film, if they were going to do anything with original content, like from the original trilogy, use shows for that. Like they're doing with Obi-Wan, they're telling a more longer story, what they're doing with Mando. If you're creating new stuff, I think it still can work as a movie. You know, maybe we'll talk more about that at the end, but I think this shows like, hey, if you're going to do something different, like it can't be with the Skywalker saga. Cause that's the big thing of like, you're carrying this Titanic, you know, series and, you know, movies. And it's like, you're not seeing the iceberg, and you hit it with Force Awakens, you know, in hindsight, as you know, we'll talk about Force Awakens soon, but you know, you're just going on a path that is no success. Hans, you have any closing thoughts on this one? Sorry, Greg, if you wanted to chip in. Sorry.
It's okay. I was just going to say, I totally agree. Like, yeah, the Skywalker saga is the bread and butter. People have been waiting for a sequel to this series forever.
We want to see the closure.
Right.
All the actors are coming up.
Give me that comfort food. Like, don't sit there and like, oh, well, here's your $1,000 prefix dinner that you're not going to like any dishes from. It's like, no, just give me mashed potatoes and steak. Like, that's what I wanted.
Yeah. And I think part of the problem too, and I forgot to mention this really quick, Hans, I'm sorry, is, you know, Carrie Fisher's passing, you know, whether, you know, that how much that impacted this one, because, you know, the timeline's a little bit fuzzy on exact dates, but like they really, you know, they got rid of Han in the first one. They didn't touch Luke in the first one. They're circling back, throwing Luke in this one. And then, you know, Carrie Fisher's passing, you know, kind of made it like, well, what's going to happen, you know, here, and what's going to happen with the next one. So, yeah, it's just, they kind of painted themselves into a little bit of a hole, like things that weren't in their control kind of happened, but they painted themselves in a hole regardless. So, yeah.
Yeah, that I mean, I agree with everything. I'm gonna keep it. This is gonna be like Solo, where you guys change my mind. I'm keeping it right where it belongs.
Okay. All right. Well, that said, then hands take us into the next one.
Speaking of the sequel trilogy, we're gonna go the only one we haven't talked about yet, the Return of Star Wars in 2015, Force Awakens. I remember seeing the trailer for this. I still remember the teaser and like all the hype with this coming out, like not just the teaser but the actual trailer. But you know, from our understanding of right now, it's a brand new Star Wars trilogy. We don't really know, like all we know is there's like who's casted, like the three, we get looks of the three new leads, and four actually, I forgot Kylo Ren. But you know, I think this movie is although it's considered like a New Hope repeat.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's actually you know, it's the best of the new ones. I have it as ranked sixth. But I think anything like from now on is probably going to be like is like top tier Star Wars for me. I love the new characters that they introduced. I think Rey got a lot of hate. I think it's set up a good story to move forward to like kind of and reintroduce some previous characters. So we got Chewie, Leia, and Han come back, and like C-3PO and R2D2. But I think it's actually, I think what impressed me the most was the special effects of how they have come, like I feel you come from the original movie that was like very practical and had some like kind of obviously like kind of cheesy special effects, but good for the time. Then you go to the prequels that is, it feels like it's like 95% CGI, and I feel like the mix of practical with this with the Force Awakens along with like some of the special effects like matched up really well. Like I felt like the X-wings were like legitimately flying, like there was actually like legitimate like dogfights happening. um you know, it kind of sets up Kylo Ren as the main villain through the new trilogy, which he sort of is. But you know, they don't really hold anything back. Like they go right away and say, "Yep, this is Solo's son." Like they don't kind of make it or like hide it as a reveal. It kind of just happens. And I think they set up the characters really well. And I think that's what you want from. I guess at that point it was when did like 12 years since a Star Wars live action movie came out. And I think it brought everyone back into that world where it's just like, yeah, like this is like Star Wars is like, I don't want to say Star Wars is back, but it's like now it's still like a monster and it's gonna be for God knows how long. So Howard, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned, you know, where you had it on your list. It's obviously number 5 in our overall ranking. I had it slightly highest between you guys at number 4. Yeah, I mean, you know, you mentioned the trailer, Chris. I mean, I was working for this. You know, I watched this before it actually came out. Sorry to all the distributors out there or to, you know, Disney. I watched it before I was supposed to. So, yeah, so yeah, the hype was got me on this, and as Greg mentioned earlier, it's like, hey, I'm going to my restaurant and I want my steak and potatoes, and that's exactly what I felt like this gave. I felt like Kylo Ren was, you know, I feel he's could possibly be the best villain. You know, I just liked his arc, and especially the way they set it up in this. I hated the way they ended it and all that stuff, but whatever. Enjoyed the Rey origin story stuff. The stuff on Jakku was great. You know, you can make a case that it's, you know, just, you know, the planet next to Tatooine and it's a photocopy image almost. When the Falcon shows up, you know, Greg talks about goosebumps. You know, that was a scene that showed a little bit in the trailer, but that, you know, you felt that way. You know, there's a Star Killer base reference to the Death Star. There's that stuff. You know, there's the whole thing of finding Luke and were we going to get Luke in this movie? And you realize no. And that was a little bit disappointing. Not even a line. Which was a little bit, you know, I think problematic. You know, when I talk about the arc of stuff, you had the introduction of Maz, you know, with her, you know, when Rey discovers the lightsaber, and it's like, did we really like? Did that character grow? Did we like again? It's just nothing used out of that. You know, there was the scene between Han and Kylo, and that, you know, that kind of scene where, Kylo ends up killing Han, which was, pretty emotional, scene, which definitely hit well. And then I really enjoy the Kylo and Rey fight because, they're gearing up to it the whole movie. These two are kind of the next Luke and Darth, if you want to just put a simple thing on it. I kind of enjoy their fight in the forest a little bit, with that going on. But yeah, as much as this is, you could say a photocopy of a New Hope, really enjoy this one. Yeah, really enjoyed, really, like, again, a lot of times I always go back to like the moment when things were coming out. Like this one just stands out to me with that, and probably why I have it ranked a little slightly higher than you guys do. Papa, what are your thoughts on Force?
Yeah, so I really liked The Force Awakens. I thought it was a great return to the franchise. I had it ranked at 5th, which is exactly where it placed with our average. I still say whenever I come home with my dog Chewy, we're home. that line from the trailer.
Adorable.
So yeah, I don't know. I just I really like this. I know, a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's a carbon copy of A New Hope. And yeah, some of the major beats, I guess, are the same, but there's enough different stuff in between that, it stands on its own for me, and I enjoy it. Really the only knock I would have against it, or major fault I would say, is having Luke not appear until the very end and not even a single line of dialogue. Like have him, appear in the 3rd act or whatever, give us a little something, but to not have anything and save all of that, it felt like kind of a letdown because they knew what they were doing. I mean, fans were anticipating that, and it's like, oh, well, guess what? You're waiting another 3 years now. And it's like, bummer, dude. So, oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's such like when you think about the potential of a character like Finn and like, what's his story and how did he, how did he defect? And you think about Poe and like show us here, like Poe's struggles of like wanting to be a leader, but also like willing to do whatever, what costs. Like there's so many things that you just look back on, or even Captain Phasma, where it's like, oh, like what is, how do you become that? Like, where's the origin story behind that? Or where's your story? And it's like absolutely nothing, done with it, and nothing moved on to the next movie, and I think a lot of that starts with what you mentioned with Luke, where it's like, let's not show Luke at all in this movie and just have him be the set piece for the next one. And then let's totally change gears 100%, with where people thought his character was. So, yeah.
Right. What else? I really liked Kylo Ren. He's not Darth Vader. He's something different, and that's good because you can't just copy Darth Vader. He's more unhinged and, whatever. Trying to think of what else. BB-8. We haven't really touched on BB-8. I think he's a great addition to the droids. He's definitely classic. Can't hear you, bud. Oh
yeah,
yeah,
love BB-8.
So BB-8, great addition. I don't know. I really like The Force Awakens. I like the environments. I like, the characters, all of it. It's all good except for the Luke stuff.
I just want to live back in the potential of Force Awakens, where you love Force Awakens and you're like, I can't wait to see what they do with this and what they do with that and all this stuff, and just it's so depressing after.
I know, dude. I know. Okay.
I spend way too much time like rewriting the sequel trilogy, like in my head. Like I come up with so many ideas where like
going, Chris.
No, it's that my 100 followers, where 25% of them are like OnlyFans accounts.
Look out for Hans's fan fiction, 50 Shades of Skywalker.
yeah. Like I literally come up with like some of these ideas. I'm just like, man, like what if they did this? What if they did this? I'm like, well, I can't go back in time, and even if that was the case, like JJ and Kathleen Kennedy are probably gonna be like, who the hell is this guy? Like we get millions of these letters from these nerds all the time.
Well, one day time travel will be invented, and then you can take your shot.
I'm getting that Facebook money.
All right. Well, let's move on to our next one. And that is Rogue One, ranked at number 4.
Number 4.
So I had this slightly higher. I had this at number 3, but I think number 4 is a good place for it. Rogue One, just fantastic. I loved all of the characters. Even the ones that maybe didn't necessarily get as much shine. Chirrut Imwe, looking at you, Donnie Yen. but like I loved all of them, and it's crazy because for the most part you could kind of guess what the fate of these characters was, because obviously we had never heard of them before. We kind of knew where the story was leading up to. As I mentioned when we were discussing Solo, I didn't think this was a necessary movie, and boy, they proved me wrong. Like they really went out of their way to make us care about the Ursos and Cassian Andor. K2SO was a droid unlike anything we had seen before, and he was awesome. I mean, again, Chirrut Îmwe, not necessarily a Jedi, but someone kind of in tune with the Force anyway. And to that point, there were no really Force users in this movie except for Vader, who we see.
Yeah.
But the movie still stands on its own without that, proving that you can do a Star Wars without your phony sorcerer's ways. So yeah, I really, really love that movie. And boy, that Vader scene at the end, like showing him to be the dude that we all knew he could be, was just amazing. So I don't know. I think also some people were kind of down on the Tarkin and Leia CG, but I thought it looked fine. I think Tarkin maybe looked a tiny bit off, but I wouldn't naysay it or poo-poo it.
One or two. I mean, he was in a couple. I think he was in a couple more scenes than I had anticipated, and I think that's where people kind of get that feeling of like, where Leia has the one, and you're like, wow, that looks really good.
Right. And again, the locales I thought were fantastic. The settings, especially Scarif, that was the type of the world that we hadn't seen before in Star Wars, where it's kind of just like beach land with palm trees. But guess what? It was awesome. So yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. Happy we're getting a Cassian Andor spinoff, which did they finish filming? I think I just read that it had wrapped.
I think it's done. I think it's either done or like they're like on the brink of it, but I think they're done.
So excited for that. Although I do believe they said there's not going to be any K2 in that series, at least not initially. But hopefully there will be a season 2 or whatever. So yeah, Rogue One, fantastic movie. Really enjoyed it. Hans, what are your thoughts?
I rank this as my number 2. And I think like you could take a lot of things out of this and not necessarily like, and I think that this movie would not be successful without the Star Wars name. I think that like if you kind of took out Darth Vader and the whole "May the Force be with you" kind of stuff and like the Star Wars references, but I think like this is like, I don't feel like this is a Star Wars movie. I feel this is like more like a war movie, and especially like the whole last hour when they're on Scarif, and that like it's legit, like it is a war. Like it's not necessarily like battles that we've seen normally in Star Wars before. And this is like, when I talk about seeing something that's different, like Last Jedi, like this is a completely different story that like we've known about since New Hope. But I think it wasn't a necessary story, but I'm glad they told it, because this movie is honestly, like, I have it ranked number 2. And I think, there's a lot of talent in here that I didn't even realize that, like, I forgot they were in it. Like, I'd like Mads Mikkelsen, Ben Mendelsohn, like Ben Mendelsohn is a phenomenal actor. And I feel like he doesn't 100%. Like, I feel like a lot of people, I feel like he's a lesser known actor out there. Like, he's definitely like has leading roles or like some leading roles, but like, I don't think he gets enough credit as he should.
Just check him out in Captain Marvel.
No. But whoops. But other than that, like I like one. Yeah, I know, right? The like the rest of the cast, like Riz Ahmed, who is a like probably one of the, like, I would say on my radar for like the top 5 up and coming actors that like I just know that like they're going to have a very good career. What was that look for, Harry?
No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
No, that's a good call. That's a take I haven't heard from you. So sometimes when you make those takes, I'm blown away.
He's a fantastic actor.
He is good,
but like, just to go back, he wasn't good in Venom, but I'll just let that happen. But
is anyone?
Yeah,
exactly. But I think it's cool, like that whole, like, and just to jump on your thought, like with the whole Vader scene, like that, I don't remember the last time I've had that many, like that amount of goosebumps, like in a movie, because like when you see the red lightsaber, you're just like, uh-oh. Like, and then not, and it wasn't just him slashing people down. Like he actually uses powers that we've never seen before. Like you've never seen that version of Vader. The CGI didn't bother me with Tarkin. I mean, I knew it was fake. I knew he wasn't really there because
really,
you didn't think they brought him back from the dead.
I figured that out early that it wasn't him.
I knew it was fake.
Wait a minute.
But you could tell, like with his movements, like when he was standing still, it was fine. But when he was moving, you could tell obviously like it was CGI. The Leia, like she said one word, I think, and that was it, and whatever.
Yeah.
But this movie is I really went in with, I don't want to say low expectations, but like average, and it like blew them away. Glad we're getting the Cassian series. I know that's probably going to be a prequel. You know, it's showing how the Rogue One ended, but hopefully we get to K2SO because he's Alan Tudyk or Tudyk, however you say his name, is a fantastic voice actor. So he needs to come back. Har?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys hit on, all the points. I mean, obviously, we could talk about Vader showing up, and it's like, man, this is the Vader we all thought of, wanted to see, given the lack of technology back in the 70s and 80s with the abilities of a Jedi or a Sith. But yeah, I had this as number 6 for no negative reason. I was a little bit lower on this than you guys, but I think I have to pull a hand ready on this and be like, maybe I could bump it up a spot or two, for it. Just even the opening of this movie with Galen Erso and Krennic. I really enjoy Ben Mendelsohn. I think he does a great job of like what you think. And I think Domhnall Gleeson, we didn't really touch on him in the new trilogy. Like I enjoy when like the general who like doesn't really hold any, like holds all the power of like being in control of the First Order or, in charge of the Empire without being like, I'm not a Jedi and like Vader could kill me at any moment or Kylo could kill me at any moment, but like running their mouth. Like I really enjoy that character. And I hope that continues throughout Star Wars, where there's just a commanding officer who's just thinks he's all that, but he's really not. But yeah, I mean, all the characters that we've talked about, play their roles, and each have a moment at the end, which causes the plans to be, executed and sent to the Republic to, then, set up a New Hope, and there's that perfect streamline right to it, which works out really well. And I was getting a little bit depressed because we've been talking so much about the back half of the list, and there was so much promise with Force Awakens, and with this one, this was 2016, a year after Force Awakens, and there was like, wow, maybe these side movies can really work. And little did we know that Solo would come out and everybody would be like, we'll pass. we don't need it. So but yeah, no, I mean, excited to see the Cassian show, and I wish they would do more things like this, like take characters that really work and actors that really work, and hey, let's tell a 6, 5, 8 whatever episode side story of their coming to who they are. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
All right, let us move on then. Harry.
Yes. I was about to steal it for you. So now we are into, I believe, our top 3, which if you're following along at home, there's 3 movies that we haven't mentioned, which I think all start this whole thing. And number 3 on our list is A New Hope. Now this is your classic hero, Greek story, and it's done to a T, and it's done in space. And this movie was introduced to me, as we, as I mentioned earlier, we're all growing up, and my dad had just started talking about Star Wars to me, and was like, hey, you got to watch it. And I was like, okay, Dad, like whatever you say. Dad, old man's got a movie recommendation. Sounds corny. And just absolutely hooked. We again, what is this boomer moment? We put the video, we put a VCR tape in, recorded it on like TNT or something, and whatever cable channel, and like that's how I was able to watch it. Because of course you go to bed early, and like when you're 8 years old, and he was like, hey, we'll watch this on a weekend. So definitely some cherished memories there with that. Holds a special place, getting introduced to Star Wars for the first time. And even early on in the movie, this is something I think the prequels lacked, and I think they tried to do it with Force, but like just learning about the history of what a Jedi is, or how this story like is going to be told. And it's funny, thinking about it, how many secrets Obi-Wan keeps as he's like talking to Luke. And I know there's probably some things back then when he's first making it like, hey, don't treat this like all these things, but it's like they're talking about like how, oh yeah, Darth Vader, he was a friend of your father's and he betrayed him. Yeah. And hey, you have a sister somewhere. I don't want to tell you about it. And Leia, the woman who I'm watching a little, screen of her announcing something. That's Leia. Crap. Oh man, this is a lot.
Obi-Wan.
But he plays.
Of course, I know him. He's me.
Yeah, he plays that super cool. I mean, Alec Guinness, just great there. Obviously introducing Han. I was always I've talked about it before. I was always a Luke guy. Wanting to be Luke, maybe I thought Han was too cool for me. It's just your classic story. I mean, we don't have to tell it. It's a tale as they would say, as old as time. But yeah, number 3 on our list, as far as where I had it in my rankings for it, I had it at number 3. So right where we have it. A perfect movie, a perfect introduction, for anyone who wants to know about hearing a villain story. So, Hans, you want to take it?
I have it as number 3 too. I mean, it started it all. It honestly, I think it basically showed up like special effects that people didn't even know like existed in movies. It basically started off an entire genre for the most part, for lack of a better word. Science fiction existed, but this just reinvented it. My favorite part is, and I think it's in A New Hope, my favorite quote is when Luke's talking to his aunt and uncle and he says, Obi-Wan Kenobi, do you think he might, like, he says something like, do you think he means Ben Kenobi? Like, come on, man. Like, they have the same last name. Like,
how many Kenobis walking around?
Exactly.
General Kenobi.
Yeah. And I'm just like, in hindsight watching that, I'm like, come on, Luke, you're smarter than that. I hope you are. But yeah, I mean, you get introduced to all these like iconic characters that that everyone, even Star Wars fans, know their names. Like, everyone, like 8 billion people on this planet, and I guarantee you like 90% of them know the name Skywalker or Han Solo, or in some way it's referenced Princess Leia, Darth Vader, like all of them.
Or Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru's skeletons.
R.I.P. Yeah. Which I don't know why Ray would want to go back in that house, because there's a lot of like just some bad things happen in that house.
Bad juju.
It's like buying a haunted house.
Bury the trilogy.
Yeah, instead of seeing now Ray, instead of seeing Uncle and Uncle's ghosts, sees Luke and Leia haunting that little house. But I think that like it goes to all it introduced like basically the world to this idea of like having like stories being told in galaxies far away, and different types of aliens and characters that we all love. That you see news footage from like 1977 of people lining up to see this movie, and it just like destroyed box office, and it spawned a company, or just like a brand that is worth billions and billions of dollars. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Papa, what about you?
So I had A New Hope ranked number 2. It's not my favorite movie, but I think it might be the best movie of the trilogy, or of all the franchise. It's just so pure. It's I wouldn't even qualify. I mean, it is sci-fi, but I wouldn't even qualify it as sci-fi. I'd qualify it as fantasy, because it's more, there's the princess and we're rescuing her and we're off on an adventure, and like, it's all this type of stuff. It's sweet without being saccharine, and it's just, man, it's such a good movie, and I have so many fond memories associated with it. But like, this will be the first movie that I introduce my daughter to, the first Star Wars movie. This is, but I mean, even logically, it's like, from a story perspective, this is the easiest to digest because it's just so pure, and it's like, yeah, it goes from point A to B to C, and yeah, there's not a lot of surprises or twists or anything like that, but that's okay. Like, it's such a well done movie. Like, they really had magic captured on the film cells, and I'm just so thankful that this was the way that it happened, and it kicked everything all off. It's a wonderful movie, and yeah, I mean, nothing bad to say about it or how they could improve upon it. I mean, this is what kicked everything off and led to our love. And if there was no A New Hope, then there's no us talking about this on a podcast right now, and all of this good stuff, all these wonderful byproducts that have spun out of Star Wars. It's all because of this one movie. So,
wow, that's nice, Papa. Well said. I will say I made a mistake in the beginning. When I started talking about A New Hope, it's actually tied for this place of third, but we could flip flop it with our next movie. So, is that Greg? Craig,
yep,
take it away.
So our number 2, or tied for number 3, however you want to put it, is also my number 1 movie, which is Return of the Jedi. Man, if I could just distill this movie down to one line, I had a close relationship with my dad before he passed, and like, my favorite line from this movie is, "I am a Jedi like my father before me." And it just really, like, he wasn't a huge Star Wars fan, but my memories of Star Wars, I kind of equate with him because he got me the movies, and we would go toy hunting and buy the toys and all that stuff. And it was just, it's so good. And the torch of hope is, I know this isn't A New Hope, but the torch of hope is almost out. Obi-Wan is dead and Yoda dies, and it's just Luke, although there is another. So Luke has to carry on that hope and rebuild the Jedi Order. Oh yeah, and he has to take down the evil Emperor once and for all, and try and turn his dad back to the side of good. And redeeming Darth Vader is no small feat. So seeing all of these things is actually put to screen and capping off the end of the trilogy is just, it's magical. Also, the Han story, glad they got him back. They got him, out of carbonite, and the stuff on the forest moon of Endor with the Ewoks and all, I thought was pretty entertaining, pretty cool. I know some people hate the Ewoks, similar to the way that we kind of despise Jar Jar, but I'm all about the Ewoks. I love them. They're cute and they're vicious at the same time. I just not enough time in the day to praise this movie. When the Empire falls and they have the celebration, whether it's the original Celebrate the Love Yub Nub, or the new version, which I actually prefer, and they have the fireworks going off all over the universe, it's a wonderful moment. And then we have the funeral pyre for Darth Vader, and then we see the Jedi sitting at the end, and it's Luke and Leia, and Luke's the only one that can see the Force Ghosts, but he knows that they're there and everything's going to be okay. So it's just it's a magical thing for me. I absolutely love this movie. I don't think you could have capped that trilogy off any better than Return of the Jedi did. And like I said, even though I don't think it's as good of a movie as A New Hope, I prefer this movie over A New Hope. I enjoy it better personally. So what do you guys think? Hans, how about you, buddy?
I hate the Ewoks. I'm just flat. I've said that before on this show, that I do not like the Ewoks. I don't have it ranked as high. I think I have it like 5th or 6th on mine.
Yeah, it was
5. 5.
Tragic take.
It's not, though. I mean, but I will say that, like, I think the opening where the Han rescue is such a good scene. I think that the end between Luke and Vader is probably my favorite lightsaber fight of all the movies. Like, I love that whole scene. Although, I watched it maybe like before. I think I did a rewatch before Rise came out on all the Star Wars movies. And the one thing I noticed is I'm like, Luke is supposed to be this like, beacon of hope. I'm like, he really like gave into the dark side. He was gonna like take the Emperor out until Vader
close.
stopped him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it wasn't for Vader there, like Luke would have been full dark side. So let's not all give Luke saying he's such a good guy because Vader stopped him. But I do love Return of the Jedi, but I think there's a lot of fluff in there. Like I think you can get rid of Endor. I really don't like it. Even that, like the whole movie kind of is like bringing back the whole Death Star. I think that was like kind of, they may have needed an idea and to say like, oh, well, let's just take an idea from the first one and bring it back. We get some really cool lines from Admiral Akbar, who's my favorite, one of my top 5 favorite Star Wars characters because he's so goofy. He's like, it's a trap. I crack up anytime I hear that in any kind of media or anything. But yeah, I mean, it closes out the original trilogy like really well. Like it really wraps everything up. And I mean, they honestly, Lucas could have stopped there if he didn't decide to do episode 4, 5, and 6. He could have just done 1, 2, and 3 and let it be. But of course, he had plans in the future to do a 1, 2, and 3. But
he needed a summer home, and another winter home and another fall home.
Dude, he could have bought a country with the way this thing's making money. But yeah, I think that like it tied up. Like I don't think I'm glad that we kind of got more Star Wars after the years, but I think Jedi really like closed the loop. And this was before in like the 70s and 80s where we weren't always looking to say like, all right, well, this movie deserves a sequel now. This movie deserves a sequel. I think back then, like filmmakers really stuck to their guns to say, this is my movie. I'm not making any more. Nowadays, it's like if a movie makes a couple $100 million, like the first thing people go to is like, we want a sequel. We want a sequel. I think back then it was kind of cool to say like, all right, this series is done now, 15 years later, Lucas is like, hey, kind of want to finish off that 1, 2, and 3 part. So I'm going to go back and do that. But yeah, I think I think everyone really like kind of does a phenomenal job with the performances. The one thing I have a gripe about is, and I agree with Harrison Ford. I think they should have killed Han Solo off somehow, like in some kind of a sacrifice. I'm not going to hold that against them and say like, oh my God, like this movie sucks now because they didn't do that. Because of that, now we got Han Solo in the sequel movie. So, not bad. He just ended up dying in those instead. But yeah, those are my thoughts on Jedi. Howard, what do you got?
I mean, I had this on number 2 on my list. I mean, I think I could flip-flop this with number 1, which we'll get to, which, I mean, if you're a Star Wars fan, you know what's coming up. So I think it flips. I mean, this is kind of, when this movie came out, when I first saw this movie, this is like where I wanted to be like Luke. I wanted to be a Jedi. I wanted to have the, green lightsaber. I wanted to be super cool. I was like, there's multiple colors other than red and blue. This is great. And I think, one of the things that you're mentioning, Chris, because I think Greg said a lot, about the positives. And I think, the Ewok stuff for me and the Endor stuff, I think is fun. It's cute. It's lighthearted. It works for me. The Luke stuff is, I mean, that's what kind of the beauty of, the dark side, and, being a Jedi and being a Sith is. It's like you're so close to being on one side or the other, and the struggle, to say, and is this true? And yeah, there's the Yodas who are 100% committed to being a Jedi, and there's the Palpatines who are 100% committed to being a Sith. But I think that's the beauty of that fight of Luke's temptation to want to try to do right, but also riding that line where it's like I'm turning to the dark side possibly. So then there's the Vader redemption, a little bit, when he throws the Emperor off, which he died. So the ninth movie doesn't exist, as we talked about.
Thank you.
Rise does not exist. But you know, and there's that nice moment between Luke and Anakin, and I'll call him Anakin at this point because the mask is off, but and just talking about it. So yeah, it's again, like Greg said, I know Greg I think mentioned to me before, he throws that YouTube up of that final scene and just kind of puts it on to go to his happy place. So you definitely get the vibes there from that, and it's yeah, I mean, I know some people kind of give Return of the Jedi a lot of hate, but I think that's because of our number one movie, and how well this is received, not just, with us, but also, with our audience and probably with other people.
And what is that number one movie, Hans?
That was a beautiful transition.
I didn't know,
Hans. And
I apologize. I didn't know if we were done our thoughts on Jedi. Sorry.
Just trying to ratchet up that suspense.
I teed it up for you.
For all you sports fans, that was the equivalent of Ben Simmons passing on a wide open dunk. In Game 7 of last year's playoffs. So any Star Wars fan knows what's coming next. It is the very classic, the sequel to A New Hope, The Empire Strikes Back. Just going to go off and say, like, this is probably always in the discussion of not just best sequels, but it's always usually in terms of, and Greg, I'll throw the sci-fi and say fantasy and even sci-fi movies. Like, this is one of the probably the best movies ever, at least in my opinion. Whenever I say, like, someone says, like, name a sequel that's better than the original, it's always going to be Empire Strikes Back. They really, like, amped up A New Hope. I feel like as much as it takes place in an entire galaxy. I think that I think A New Hope was more of a smaller scale for kind of a lack of a better word. I feel like Empire really just, like, amped the stakes up of the fact of, like, how like strong the Empire really is, and how they're not going down without a fight. We get the Battle of Hoth, which is one of my favorite openings to a movie ever. I think that whole, like, the intensity with that. You get the great Tauntaun scene of seeing Luke get all curled up and get warm in a goofy looking animal.
And I thought they smell bad on the outside.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, it all leads up to Cloud City. And then what I think is probably, and I don't want to say necessarily like from a lightsaber fight. I think just the whole scene of Luke confronting Vader when he really shouldn't have, is great. Like, one of probably my favorite movie shot is when Vader standing on top of the steps has the smoke behind him, and then he says to Luke, he's like the Force is strong in you, but you're not a Jedi yet. And it's great. Like, that's not even a fair fight because Vader is fighting with one hand the whole fight until the very end when they're on the bridge, and then it's just like berserker mode. And we find out the big reveal, which is if I can go back in time, it would probably be to be in the theater when you find out that Vader is Luke's father, which is one of, like, it goes back in 1980 that came out, is like before twist endings were a thing, and when a movie had to have a twist ending, like, you could tell that like blew everyone's mind from what I hear from people who've actually been in the theater. And it leaves kind of the series on a down note. Like, pretty much all the main characters have been defeated, and then I think that's where it leads into the fact that you're getting you're getting a third movie at that point. And I think that that's usually how it usually plays in, like, a trilogy where it's high, low, back to high for your hero. You get the weird kiss between Luke and Leia, which now, looking back at it, like, was, if Lucas knew what he was doing, then he's a creep. And
oh, come on, Game of Thrones has plenty of that. It's all fine.
Whatever.
Back to the Future almost does too.
Yeah, Back to the Future. Back to the Future might have been a little worse.
All the classics have it.
Incest was running rampant in the 80s. But yeah, I think that, like, this is like it's in the conversation for, like, best sequel, best movie. Like, it's you have so many iconic moments from this, and it really, Like I can't find one bad thing about this movie. I can pick apart other Star Wars movies, but I think from this one, like if there was one of them that I can watch from beginning to end, it would definitely be Empire, because like through the whole thing, I'm just stuck on it. Like I won't, if it's on, I will make sure like I'll somehow like if I catch it in the middle, then I'm like, all right, well now I gotta go put it on because I want to watch it from the beginning. So Papa, what about you?
Yeah, so I had this ranked number 4, and really on any given day, this could probably flip between 3 and 4 with Rogue One for me. But it's just it's a fantastic movie. I want to say one of my favorite quotes here, although I can't do a Frank Oz voice, but life creates it, makes it grow. Its energy surrounds us and binds us. Luminous beings are we, not this crude matter. So that is just a fantastic quote from Yoda, and one of my all-time favorite movie quotes. Really, the only strike that I have against this movie is the very reason that people love it so much, which is because it's dark. The first one and the third one being A New Hope and Return of the Jedi, they have hope in them, whereas this one there's no hope. From the very beginning, the rebels are being hunted down and they're on the run, and the very end they're in the same place. They make no ground, and if any, they give up some ground. So I don't like dark or bleak or nihilistic movies. I'll watch them, but that doesn't mean I enjoy them, and that is the one thing that takes away from this, because it's not that happy ending that the first and the third movie give us. So, but that being said, I mean, it's still a great movie. I love The Empire Strikes Back. I can't knock it for anything else. It is a fantastic movie. We get more of our favorites in different settings, different looks. We get new characters like Lando and all the bounty hunters, Boba Fett, Zuckuss and Orlom and Dengar. Love them all. So yeah, it's just a tremendous movie. And I can see why it's number 1 for most people. I don't agree with it, but I can't knock that decision. Harry, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, it was number 1 for me, but as I mentioned, I mean, this and Jedi, you could kind of flip a coin, as Greg was saying about his, him and a new, this and Rogue One for you. Mm-hmm. Just the opening, Chris mentioned a little bit with Hoth, but like, who as a kid when it snowed, like, didn't try to pretend you were on Hoth and like trying to survive and like, making igloos and just being like, oh, this is our defense line here. Let's have a snowball fight.
Find a deer and cut it open and then curl inside of it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know. My childhood wasn't like that. I know you grew up in the country, so it's fine. Vespin, just seeing Vespin and like, the Lando Han, kind of back and forth, which, if you think on it, Solo does a lot of that with them betting on the Falcon and everything. And, this is obviously, the creation of that. So one thing Solo did get right. Great job.
Lando putting the moves on Leia. How about that?
I know. Yeah.
You truly belong with us up here amongst the clouds.
He shoots his shot.
Dude, Lando goes after robots too. Like he's just likes
he's
it all.
He's a people pleaser. He loves it all. He'll take whatever he can get. I enjoy the Yoda training with Luke. I don't know if a lot of people love that, but when he's sitting down with Yoda, and as you get older and you kind of listen to it a little bit more, a lot of it makes a little bit more sense. This is kind of, when Luke does lose his hand, and finds out Vader's his father and he calls out to Leia, we see that there's a connection there. His father. There's a connection there.
His Faja.
We see there's a connection there with Leia and Luke and their kind of force powers there. So that's the first indication we see for that. But yeah, I mean, you guys kind of said it all with this one. So it belongs. I think it's a deserving belonging of the first place on our list. You can make a case for Jedi. You can make a case for New Hope. But if you're putting anything else up there, I'd love to hear about it. So from the people out there. But yeah, great choice for number 1, I think, for us.
Mm-hmm. Any thoughts on any of the trilogies as a set, whether it's the prequel, the OG, or the sequel trilogies. Do you guys, or any thoughts in general about any of this?
Yeah, I'll take it. Obviously the original trilogy, I think that's just sometimes I think it's how it's introduced to you. I know for my wife, the first Star Wars movie she ever saw was Force Awakens. She never saw the originals, so she does enjoy the originals, but it's kind of one of those things where it's like, oh, Force Awakens is a fantastic movie. I don't want to speak for her though, but yeah, so the original trilogy, it holds a special place in my heart, especially, when you talk about, that family member or, that person in your life who's like, you got to see Star Wars. And it's like, okay, dude, when it first gets introduced to you. I think the prequels get, probably the most hate, and rightfully so, for the amount of changes and less practicality that it used. But, I still think there's moments, and it kind of redeems itself, I think, with Sith. And as far as the new trilogy, there was so much hope with Force Awakens, and it felt like something was awakened in us that, there was possibility, and we would get another trilogy, and we were back. And
then they put that back to sleep.
And then I enjoy The Last Jedi more than Greg, and we could probably go on for another hour about arguments about that, but we'll keep it contained for the viewers. And the absolute dumpster fire of Rise of Skywalker. There was a meme that went around where Rey turns and she says, "I'm Rey." And the meme was Rey Star Wars. And that's how that felt with that. So I'm Rey Star Wars, everyone. Hands, any final thoughts on the series as a whole?
Not only is like Star Wars given us like so much entertainment, like and great storytelling, it's given us and as someone said earlier about me, I'm a meme lord. We've gotten so many classic memes from Star Wars and so much classic internet material for jokes. And it's great to like just look beyond the whole science fiction part of it and be like, hey, how many high ground memes can I look at? And how many memes of Yoda sleeping can I look at? And it's just amazing. It transcends just movies. Now it's just like my daily intake of entertainment.
You mentioned internet stuff. I desperately urge anybody who's listening, after you finish listening or watching this episode, if you have not seen the bad lip sync videos of songs, do you know what I'm talking about, Hans? Okay.
I think so.
Please go to the YouTube channel, Bad Lip Sync, and they have like 5 or 6 different Star Wars songs. You have to watch them. They're hilarious. And the beats are like actually really good. They could be like legit beats in pop songs or whatever. But those songs are amazing.
Okay.
Question for you guys. What order should people watch them in? Chronological, which would be straight through starting from episode 1, or I guess release, which would be, the OG trilogy, and then the prequels and then the sequels. I say chronological. I mean, you give up the secret of Vader being the father, which, if you're listening to us, you've already known that secret. But you get the character arcs. Yeah, you get the character arcs.
What I would probably do, like when Finn starts watching Star Wars, I would probably do original, prequel, like in order of release, only because like I feel like as someone who's so young, who's not like at the time, like I feel like if like Harry, when Jill watched Star Wars, did she know Darth Vader was Luke's father?
Great question. I think so. I think she had some generic knowledge, but
that's such a thing in pop culture now. I mean, it's
exactly.
I can't imagine.
And I feel like I would want that, at least like I would want to see someone experience that. Like, so excuse me, when Finn's old enough to watch, like I definitely would show him like the release. And then like, cause there's really not the rest of the series doesn't really have like any kind of like mind-blowing secrets except that. So I think I would just like him to experience that for the first time. So that's how I would do it. Any average person who like if outside of Finn would probably I'd probably say chronological. So
yeah. I would say I don't think you can go wrong either way in this case. I know there's, probably some diehards that'll say otherwise, but I think you could go either way. I think I'd probably go chronological just because I think, as we've talked about, that's probably the worst one. So you're taking a risk by doing that, where it's like you're getting like the worst out of the way and it's only going to get better. But I feel sometimes with most TV shows, like, Breaking Bad is my favorite TV show ever. And it's like the first season and second up until the end of the second season are pretty slow. So it's like it really works its way to points in that. But yeah, I would definitely say chronological, and then just I think it ends with episode 8. I don't think you do 9. So that's my opinion on that.
Fair
In
enough.
fact, I would do something interesting and do backwards and start with Rise of Skywalker
Get out
and
of
then
here.
just see what happens.
We've been recording for 2 hours when Hanratty's like, I go backwards. Just do it.
Start with the
Live a
Rise of
little.
Skywalker and end with A New Hope.
All right. Well, enough out of you. We're gonna tie a bow on the live action movies, but we still have a little bit more Star Wars content we're gonna discuss here. So there's actually 2 new shows, Star Wars related, on Disney Plus. The first one is Star Wars Visions, which are 9 different episodes. They're 15 minutes each, and they're standalone episodes set in the Star Wars universe, not necessarily canon, but they're all anime. And boy, they're just absolutely gorgeous. What did you guys think about Visions from what you've seen?
So I've only watched 2 episodes. I watched The Duel and The Ninth Jedi, which is good because I can jump around and not necessarily like I'm actually on another Disney Plus, like with What If. I kind of stopped after we last talked, but apparently now that's like wrapping up to be like all tied together. So I'm glad I didn't just jump around with that one, because then I'd be really confused, like if I watched the last episode like tomorrow. But with Visions, I watched The Duel on the plane on the way to Disney, and I was blown away. Like the anime, like it's not a new story in terms of not just like Star Wars, but it's like like that whole concept of like a stranger coming into a town, and like you see it on like a lot of westerns, and a lot of was it like kung fu movies,
Samurai movies,
or
yeah.
samurai. I'm sorry, yeah. So but I think it was cool to, like, with the addition of the lightsabers in there, the animation style is beautiful. Like I really love the animation in the 2 episodes that I saw. I think it's better than What If. I mean, they're not supposed to be the same, but I prefer the animation over. I think that like the action scenes really click really well with the animation in Visions. But I mean, it's so great that they're only like short episodes, so I can like knock them out in a couple days, probably in like a couple hours and realistic. But yeah, I'm I love The Duel. The 2 I saw, The Duel's my favorite. But yeah, I'm definitely hoping to check them out within the next couple days or so. So
yeah, I mean, definitely the bite size version of it, where it's I think one's like 20 minutes, but for the most part I've only seen the first 3. But yeah, I mean, all the praises of The Duel for it. Really samurai western influences. A lot of them, at least from the first 3, have to do with like kyber crystals and crystals, even though some of them don't say it. Really enjoyed Tatooine Rhapsody as just like hey, what if I was a Jedi and I just wanted to be a rock star instead and pursue my dreams? Spoilers if anyone. I mean, I don't really think you can spoil it. And the twins is a good one, like kind of based off of what if Luke and Leia, for the most part, were raised by the Sith. So interesting there for that, and kind of talks into a little bit about that kind of the pull of good and evil there for it. But yeah, really enjoying it. Again, I mean, if you're a fan and you're a little hesitant because of it is anime, I would say it's easy to jump into. It's it's not a huge commitment. They're not back to back where it's like you got to keep up. Similar, I would a little different from What If, but very much in the vein as Chris said. So yeah, really looking forward to them.
So for me, I love Visions. I would say if you're on the fence about watching it, don't sleep on it. Like I almost slept on it. I wasn't going to watch it. And then I'm like, you know what? They're 15-minute episodes. I like anime. Yeah. What's to lose? Let me check it out. And absolutely love them. Art style on all the episodes is, great. Absolutely gorgeous. They're based on different, kind of anime or manga influences.
Yeah, there's different studios that have done them too. It says like I think in the beginning, like introduced by, and so it's nice to see kind of different authors getting to tell, maybe a story or a passion project they've had,
Right.
pocketed of the story.
Right. So there's 9 episodes. I'm just going to give you a quick ranking of my favorite 4. And these are from top to bottom, but the great thing about this, because it's an anthology, you can watch them in any order you want. So my number 1 is episode 1, The Duel, which we talked about. Brief description of that: a wandering stranger with a mysterious past defends a village from powerful bandits. Episode 5, The Ninth Jedi, the other one, Hands Watched, is my number 2. The daughter of a lightsaber smith is pursued by dark forces while on a dangerous mission. Episode 7, The Elder, is my number 3. A Jedi and his Padawan pursue a dark and powerful presence. And my 4th recommendation is episode 4, The Village Bride. A Jedi on the run takes in the unique customs of a remote village under threat by a warlord. But all the episodes, honestly, are very entertaining, and they're all really good. They're all different, flavor. So by all means, check them all out. So the other show that I had on here, which I just found today, is Star Wars Galaxy of Sounds. Are you guys familiar with this? Do you know anything about it?
I've seen it on Disney Plus, but I didn't like kind of look and see what it was.
So this is really interesting. There are many episodes. Each episode is like 7 minutes long, precisely. And they have clips running through the various movies and also The Mandalorian. But all it has are sound effects. There's no score. There's no dialogue. It's just sound effects.
That's awesome.
So it's almost like white noise, like ambient noise. So like, you're on Naboo and starfighters zoom by and you just hear the starfighters, and then it flashes to that villa that Anakin and Padme were on, and you see a waterfall, right, and you hear the water trickling, and like it's all of that. And they say at the end of each episode that it's a tribute to the sound designers and engineers and the Foley artists and all that stuff. So it's very intriguing. And each episode has a theme. There's like wonder and beeps and the light side, the dark side, and all of that stuff. But I put it on for my daughter, and she was entertained. She's not quite nice. 1.5, but yeah, she found it fascinating. Entertainment value, not a ton, but if you're looking for background noise, it's pretty good. So I'd recommend checking it out.
Oh, nice.
All right, interesting. Nice.
All right. Well, that wraps it up. Thank you guys for hanging in there.
Definitive rankings.
Yes, definitive rankings of Star Wars movies. We'll revisit in 6 years when Patty Jenkins and Taika Waititi have Star Wars movies out, and everything will be right with the world again.
Can't wait.
But let us know your lists and your rankings. Post it up in our comment section on YouTube, or shoot us an email or message us, whatever, on in the comment section on Facebook. Anything, it's all good. Reply on Twitter, please, at PS Live Spicy. So with all that being said, Harry, you have anything for the peeps?
Hey, I'm going to enjoy my weekend. I hope you guys do too. Appreciate you guys listening to our episode. I mean, whenever you talk about Star Wars, it's going to be a long conversation. So, we had a round table one time for The Last Jedi and discussing our thoughts on it and problems and positives. So appreciate
hours long, mind you.
Hours long for sure. But yeah, please reach out to us. Let us know what your thoughts are. What other content would you like to see us do about Star Wars? And thanks for listening.
Hands, anything for the peeps?
Just thanks for sticking with us. It was a lot of Star Wars talk, and I feel like we didn't even scratch the surface with some of the stuff we have, especially with upcoming TV shows. And so anything, as Harry said, if you think anything that we may have missed or want us to talk about, a lot of great just movie content coming out in October. So hopefully we go to check that out, especially my most anticipated of the last, 5 years when they announced it, Dune will be out soon. So
speaking of sci-fi and fantasy.
Yeah, so hopefully we touch on that. Either way, whatever we talk about on whatever episode, I'm breaking it in, and you're gonna
hear about it.
I'll reenact Dune.
Nice. All right. Well, thank you everyone for hanging in there and for listening or viewing. As always, be sure to like, follow, comment, subscribe, leave us a review on iTunes, all of that good stuff. Follow us on Twitter at PS Live Spicy. And speaking of which, remember to always live spicy.
Spicy.